Hi guys, welcome to this live. Welcome to this very brief live. The NASA, the NASA press conference has come to a very undramatic halt. For those of you who've seen my interviews with Harvard professor Avi Loeb, you know that we've been talking at great length about the odd nature, the now 12 anomalies that Professor Avi Loeb at Harvard has kind of identified pertaining to the interstellar object 3I Atlas. Now, I went into the NASA, evening, everyone. We haven't got an interview with Avi yet. I've just been emailing him. We're probably going to, once he's done his analysis of the image that NASA has finally shared with us, NASA have finally shared their high resolution, high rise Mars image. And you know, I mean, I was going to try and download a drum roll for the kind of drama of showing you this inevitable image, which I think we were all waiting with bated breath. Now, look, going into here's the thing about NASA as an organization. There are lots of people who find them an utterly untrustworthy organization. It's another sort of department or section of the American state. It's inextricably entwined with security, with kind of narrative control. It doesn't want to cause unnecessary dramas. It doesn't want to create panic and all this kind of stuff. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute that this interstellar object is necessarily alien tech. And the thing that I've been trying to really advocate for and about and beat the drum over is the fact that neither has Harvard professor Avi Loeb suggested that this is alien technology, nor has he suggested that there are little aliens on there about to attack or anything like that. What he has been suggesting all the way through is that there are many anomalies to this, only the third interstellar object to pass through our solar system, that in and of themselves need to, in the analysis, requires those looking at those anomalies to have a more open mind to what possibly some of those, anomalies, you know, are about, or what causes them. Now, more likely than not, it's just an incredibly odd comet doing very odd things. But to that extent, what NASA's just done, the press conference for very dry scientists, and that's fine, you know, they can be dry, sat in front of a great big sign for NASA, which in and of itself looks like a relic from the 1980s. And they built up to this idea that they were going to reveal, you know, images that they've held back for 40 days due to the closing down of the American government and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm about to show you the image that NASA has shared with the world, the image that we've all been waiting with bated breath to see. And prepare yourselves, because it's dramatic. It's this. Yeah. Now, what's interesting about this image is less the fact that, of course, there are limitations on, there are difficulties with getting an image of something so far away, moving so quickly. But this image, which in many regards is and you know, you've got to understand, this isn't the most recent image of 3I Atlas. This is the image that the high-rise camera on their Mars, well, I forget which rover it is or whatever thing is, their Mars satellite is. This was taken 40 days ago. So when you know, 3I Atlas wasn't as close to us, hadn't come past the sun, etc. So we have seen, and I've shown them when we talked with Avi Loeb from Harvard in our last chat. So I've shown other images, which have been infinitely more sort of sophisticated and detailed. And I've seen a number of images already this evening coming from various other ground-based telescopes with kind of, you know, a bit more of a cometary tail and all this kind of stuff. I think when me and Avi Loeb talked last, there were jets coming out and jets going in all directions and all that kind of stuff. Stuck Breaker says, I can get that just switching off the TV. The problem with this image is it's so imprecise It's so lacking in detail, but also coupled with this image, the press conference itself was so low on any other detail. It was so low on any sort of proper analysis. Everything that NASA has just said, to be brutally honest with you, is everything that not only Avi Loeb said, but many other scientists and astronomers have said about this object many moons ago. They didn't give us any new information. They didn't tackle or deal with or answer, and they weren't questioned by a pre-selected list of questions from the press. They didn't question any of the so-called anomalies, which really, surely, the point of any kind of declaration of what NASA thinks this could be has to really be about attending to the anomalies or attending to the questions. What they should have done was they should have had, Professor Avi or a number of other astronomers in there, not challenging them because they want it to be anything that it isn't, but just saying to them, hang on, give us a bit. How much do you know? What it felt like was there was one moment where the woman in the middle of the kind of group sort of said, oh, I didn't even know about that. It felt like 4 astronomers who'd basically been called in from a canteen and said, oh, fucking hell, we've got to say something about 3i Atlas. And we've got this shit fucking image. And maybe it is a shit image. I mean, there's a lot of people on X and a lot of people on social media right now are saying things like, oh, they're going to, or a lot of the expectation was they're going to show us an image that's been digitally altered. And I think that was because we were all thinking high res Mars image, NASA. So everyone was expecting to see something a bit kind of photoshopped or diminished. What they've given us is this. And actually, this is, if you're an organization like NASA, if you're an institution that doesn't really know what the fuck this thing is, right? Let's go this way at it. No one knows what it is. The easiest thing to call it is a comet. And as MeTube quite rightly says, they called a comet a Tesla car flying through space that Elon Musk had sort of almost as a joke was a payload, wasn't it? He'd sent a Tesla, a car, into space, and it started hurtling towards Earth, and they identified it as a fucking comet. But here's the thing. That image is upside down. You're having a laugh. Does it make any difference? Put it on its side. So let's assume they don't know what it is. They've told us nothing more. In fact, they've told us less scientifically than if you go to Medium, the website or the app, and read all of Avi Loeb's anomalies and analysis and science and what have you. And yet it's scientists like these 4 sat at NASA who are trying to characterize anyone who asks any questions. And I'll say it again. He's not saying they're aliens. He's not saying it's extraterrestrial. He's not saying that. But these 4 dry, fusty individuals who basically revealed and admitted they know nothing. They didn't say they knew anything. They didn't provide any heightened evidence or more evidence in their analysis of either this photograph or any of their following of the object since to diminish or dissuade us from the idea that it's still not behaving in an anomalous fashion. I just found it. I thought it was embarrassing. I thought it was unforgivable. I thought this was such a letdown. The response online is laughable. And why have NASA done this? This is the other thing. Why have they come out and delivered a press conference in which they stressed a number of times we are transparent? Like, it felt a little bit lady doth protest too much. And yet one of the leading scientists in the group, the woman, turned to at one point and said, my God, I didn't realize we had those images. So I've got this funny feeling that there's either a sinister cover up of some form, not because they know it's something it isn't, but because they don't know anything. That's my point. I don't think they know anything. I think they were caught on the hoof. I think amateur astronomers and other astronomers around the world might have picked this object up. And I've got a feeling genuinely that NASA were caught sleeping and then had to turn towards it and try and cobble something together. And then quite quickly say, no, don't worry, everyone, it's just a fucking comet, because their job is to let us know if it's not a comet. So what I'm trying to say is nothing they said speaks to any of the anomalies. And what I thought I'd do on Professor Avi Loeb's sort of for him is just go through the anomalies that he's already identified. He published these to remind us all of these again yesterday. Its trajectory is opposite to the direction of the motion of the planets it's aligned to, within 5 degrees with the ecliptic plane of the planets around the sun. Basically, this suggests that the trajectory could have been designed for a reconnaissance mission. Now, we don't know that. Could have been. It's on a very targeted elliptical plane. It's coming in at all of our planets at such a highly unusual angle. That's what that sort of means in science speak. During July and August, as well as in November 2025, it displayed a sunward jet, an anti-tail, and I have to say, even in the NASA chat, they said things like it had an anti-tail, which is, we've seen it in a few other situations, so it is unusual, but it's not unusual enough. Okay, well, that's fair enough. But anyway, so it's an anti-tail. Avi says it's not an optical illusion from geometric perspective. This might be a technological signature, or it could be. 3, its nucleus is about 1 million times bigger than the interstellar object 1, and 1,000 times bigger than Borisov interstellar object 2, discovered in 2019. This suggests that it may have targeted the inner solar system rather than being drawn from a reservoir of icy rocks. The other point he made about the size of it is for the amount of gas and jets coming off of it, it hasn't, or images subsequent to this appalling image that NASA's just given us, images of it subsequent to this have not shown it sublimating or falling apart or reducing mass. The other thing I think I said to Avi when we were talking to him just prior to it going behind the sun was, presumably if it appears from behind the sun intact and it hasn't fallen apart, that in and of itself, is it not behaving like a normal comet? It's doing more things unlike a normal comet than the few things NASA told us it's doing like a comet. So, for example, we're in a kind of stupid situation here where one of the things that sort of suggests, oh, it must be a comet, is it's moving. I mean, that's where we're at. Oh, it's moving. If it's moving, it's acting like a comet. If there's any coma, which means if there's any sort of dust or glow around it, a dust glow around it at all, that's like a comet. But then pretty much absolutely everything in space has a coma, and everything in space when it's moving is moving. So that's kind of what's happened tonight. NASA have told us just the few little things, or just reiterated the few little things that it's doing like comets, and they completely ignored every conceivable one of these other anomalies that suggest it's not behaving like a comet or like a normal comet. Its arrival time was fine-tuned to bring it within tens of millions of kilometers of Mars. I mean, that sounds a lot, but so it's come in though relatively close to Mars, relatively close to Venus, relatively close to Jupiter come next year, and unobservable when it comes close to Earth at perihelion. It's going to be closest to us, obviously, on December the 19th. This is a biggie. Its gas plume contains much more nickel than iron. They had the grace to acknowledge that, but then they just said, well, we don't know where it's come from, so nickel could be normal. Well, then that's not cometary-like. Do you get me? So the nickel phenomenon is that normally nickel presents with iron, and it didn't present with iron. Nickel that doesn't present with iron is usually nickel alloys, i.e. they've been made. Its gas plume contains only 4% water by mass, a primary constituent of familiar comets. They didn't talk about that. It shows extreme negative polarization of light. They didn't talk about that. It arrived from a direction coincident with the radio WOW signal. They didn't talk about that. Near perihelion, it brightened faster than any known comet and was bluer than the sun. Nothing said about how it dealt with the sun. Nothing said about how it didn't fall apart. Debris didn't come off. It didn't lose its kind of, its integrity, its physical integrity as it passed the sun. And again, all of these things, what I was hoping for was a bunch of fucking, this is less about trying to suggest it's something else. But NASA have not given us anything other than everything we already know, and ignored routinely all of the anomalies that there are surrounding this. How can that be a responsible press conference? Yeah, European Space Agency and the Chinese are probably more trustworthy images. It's just bizarre. Number 10, these are the anomalies. Harvey Loeb's anomalies. It exhibits jets in the direction of the sun and opposite to it, which require an unreasonably large surface area in order to absorb enough sunlight to sublimate enough ice to feed these jets. This is the idea that it has to be a certain massive size for the heat of the sun to, say, melt ice, which then forces it through, say, fissures and holes in its surface so that it goes like a jet. The other problem with this is if it was firing off and sublimating and all this kind of stuff, by Harvey Loeb's calculations, it needed to have lost 13 to 15% of its mass, and we don't know that. We don't know that. 11, near perihelion, which is when it's nearest to the sun, it exhibited non-gravitational acceleration. They kind of dealt with this, which requires massive evaporation, whereas preliminary images indicate the object maintained its integrity and didn't break up. Perhaps the acceleration was produced by an engine. 12, its tightly collimated jets maintained orientation across 1 million kilometers in multiple directions. This might imply they are used for navigation or associated with the release of mini probes from a mothership. And so what he's proposing there, those are the kind of potential tech rationales or reasons for what's happened. But NASA didn't really go to any length to explain why all of those anomalies have actually occurred. So so I just think it's a missed opportunity. But I think really to build it all up to this image is laughable. You can't say that that's an image that's been doctored. But then some people, I was going to say, on social media and online are saying it's kind of convenient that they've got such a bad, grainy, out of focused image to reveal to the world, because they can't be accused of hiding anything, but they also can't potentially reveal anything either. So so I think a bit of a damp squib. I briefly messaged Harvey and said, that photo doesn't, they haven't told us anything we don't already know. And he said, agreed. So I may well be having another catch up with him once he's analyzed. I don't even think they've offered anyone anything new to analyze. There's nothing there. Unless Harvey Loeb puts that into Photoshop, expands it by 1 million, and then sort of colors it pink, I don't quite see what anyone can see in any of what they've shown us today. They haven't shown us anything new. That's nothing. There's nothing to work with there. So my advice would be we need to somehow rely on trustworthy, ground-based, non-institutional astronomers and telescope users, basically. So yeah, professional negligence towards public interest. I agree. Let me reiterate, this isn't about some insane ufologist weird wanting it to be something. This is something so different, so odd, and so weird that whilst some are accusing some of wanting to over amplify the possibility of artificial tech, aliens, ET, and all this bollocks, I would argue that NASA is trying to over amplify the absolute opposite. And I think one of the most interesting moments between me and Harvey in one of our conversations was the dogma, the received scientific dogma of the likes of Brian Cox, etc., and the mainstream, who seem, it's not that they're not right necessarily. It's not that they are possibly right about this, that it is just a very unusual, anomalous interstellar object. But why don't they just say that? Rather than there being a real desire to just close off and slap down any kind of inquiry, questioning, analysis, open-ended analysis. Why this is the thing I don't understand, and maybe someone could just quickly help me with this before I sign off. How can people, scientists, anyone working in the field of space exploration, how can they be so certain that there is no other form of life out there that could possibly come our way? How can they be so certain? That's the polar opposite of having an open mind about space exploration, isn't it? It's anti-science to assume it's verging on a kind of new form of religion and fundamentalism to say that only we can exist. Anyway, because of the age of the, I don't understand how that, why does that mean no one else can exist because of the age of the universe? Surely the age of the universe is so old means that more could exist. Why would it mean less could exist? I don't understand. I don't understand. There's a sort of perverted human exceptionalism and a belief and a kind of ego-driven narcissism of in the race. Can't travel the distance. Well, yeah, but you see, if we can't, but that supposes that we are the arbiters of science and all travel, YouTube, doesn't it? That presupposes that physics and everything only works in the terms that we've come to understand them. That in and of itself is egocentric. Sorry, just is. It's like we're always saying there has to be water and oxygen and all this. What the preconditions of life could be completely different in completely different setups in completely different places. It's we just don't know. We just don't know. Anyway, very disappointing, incredibly underwhelming, and not at all inquiring, imaginative, or analytical, I don't think. But anyway, looking forward to hearing what Avi Loeb has to say about it very soon, I hope. Anyway, guys, keep your thoughts coming in. See you on to infinity and